Yeah, did everybody catch that at home that's listening in, that Mohamed just kind of threw it out like nonchalantly? So, I talked to CBS and Paramount and they said it was cool. Alien Worlds was science combined with fiction, but I'm not sure. Is it science fiction though?
Probably not. But Alien Worlds on Netflix, for me at least, is just like a science lesson.
Actually, mine is very similar to both of y'all. Alien Worlds is an attempt to get people excited about science by placing it in the context of some fictional settings.
Perfect. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Falling Towers. Watch the first podcast in which we, quibble over minutia. Hey, everybody. So now I'm joined by NASA expert, even though I'm wearing the shirt, Michael Kenyon Rosenberg.
I wouldn't call myself an expert. I'm more like a X.
We're joined by also Professor of Biology and Dean of Natural Sciences at Duke University, Dr. Mohamed Noor.
Hello. Thanks for having me back. I always love being here.
My name's Ryan T. Husk, and I think I do the intro differently every time. I do them out of order and stuff. Mm-hmm. Today, we're doing a review of Netflix's Alien Worlds, Episode 1, entitled Atlas. If you'd like us to review a show or a series, in the comments below, please just say WTF and the show. For example, if you said WTF Alien Worlds, and now you saw this, we'd be like, great job, John Smith. Now we're doing this one. WTF obviously stands for watch the first. Please give this video a like. Please make sure to subscribe and share with your friends. That's like gold. That's like virtual gold to us. Mm-hmm. Let's get into it.
Well, we should also mention that this episode is airing during virtual TrekCons, Sunday mini cons right now.
I love that, actually. I love the placement there on Sundays. There's so much other great content, like before and after, and then it in the middle to add the extra punch.
Yes, it's like nestled in a Star Trek and sci-fi nest, but it's like, it's not exactly Star Trek, it's not exactly sci-fi all the time, but it's always very near and dear to the sci-fi heart.
Always awesome.
Okay, so I think we have a lot to talk about today, especially since Mohamed Noor is here, everybody. So make sure, again, to say WTF and the show you'd like us to review in the comments below.
Not just the chat.
Right. First question. Is it a question
and also
or a game?
Tell us where we can stream it, too.
Oh, yeah.
I've said this a lot. It's not like we're going to go out and buy a Laserdisc player and find
more
somewhere.
Like a loser disc player.
Yeah. Well, who even has Laserdiscs anymore anyway? Nobody comes out. So how are we gonna we're gonna go out, go to a garage sale somewhere and find some super rare, obscure show that nobody has heard about since the Laserdisc days, and then we've got to go to Rent-A-Center and rent a Laserdisc player.
eBay.
Right. Good point. So also include where we can stream it. That's the key. Our first game is my favorite game. It's literally my favorite game. Michael and I have known each other for over a score. And so we can usually come close to predicting whether the other person liked it. Mohamed's just really smart, so he probably is better at predicting than we are. Michael likes to call this game Predicaments, because we put ourselves in a predicament by making our predictions.
The transition from prediculation.
I know.
It was originally prediculations, but now I like predicaments better.
It is a cool name.
Okay. So we're going to predict. Everybody at home, try to predict if I liked it, Mohamed liked it, and or Michael liked it. Michael, I predict. Look, you're already in a pretty sassy mood right now. So that just strengthens my opinion that you enjoyed this show.
And I've got my green tea sass juice here.
I think you like this show very close to very much. And Mohamed, this is your kind of show, probably, unless the science wasn't very good, in which case you'd be like, this is a terrible show. nobody watch it. Don't let your kids watch it. But I don't think so. I don't think that's the case. So I think you liked it very much. I think it's the kind of show that you want to be out there, even if you don't necessarily watch it yourself. Michael, what are your predictions?
Like Ryan mentioned, we've known each other for a very long time. And I do know that Ryan is a fan of science. He is a science fanboy. He loves it.
It's true.
He would ask it for its autograph if it could sign an autograph. He would get a picture with it if it were corporeal and could be photographed. And so I think that Ryan liked this show because it is very sciencey. But knowing Ryan also, he loves to nitpick. So I'm guessing we're going to hear some nitpicks, but I'm thinking he's more to the side of liking it than disliking it. And Mohamed also likes science, is also a fan of science, is in fact a scientist, and teaches other people about science. So I think that he is going to like the show also.
All right, well, I'm going to give one answer for both of y'all. I think both of y'all liked it pretty well because I think what you each said matches what I know about both of y'all, that you both like science. So and I agree with the point about that there's going to be some aspects where was this the best way to present it, or things like that. So I'm going to say both of y'all are in the 7.5 range.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
wrong. I hate science.
And science hates you. But yeah. Anyway.
The earth is flat. No.
Yeah, well, that is science. Trust me, there are a lot of Facebook groups that prove it. Anyway, so
the earth is only flat on Discworld, Ryan.
It's only flat as far as we can perceive it to be when we're walking on a sidewalk or whatever. So the point is, everybody at home, make your predictions now that you have gotten some hints as to what we like and don't like, and you can kind of copy off of our test paper or our homework. Make your predictions either in the live chat or in the comments below. And Michael is prepping right now. He knows where this is going. He's going to tell everybody what this show is actually about.
Applying the laws of life on Earth to the rest of the galaxy, this series blends science facts and fiction to imagine alien life on other planets. In this episode, on exoplanet Atlas, dense gravity creates a thick atmosphere, allowing airborne life forms to thrive, but also providing a lesson in adaptability.
Well said. I love the narrator voice.
We almost lost him there for a second there. Yeah.
Atmosphere.
God, I wanted to say something, but I gotta hold my tongue a bit there. Just basically that upon watching it, Mohamed seemed even more of a good fit to talk about this show than previously assumed. So now we're going to play a game called What We Expected versus What We Got. That's the long form of the game title.
The short form is expectations.
Okay.
Hashtag expectations.
Don't encourage him, Mohamed. All right. So
Mohamed loves it. War Dogheim loves it.
He does. He does.
Everybody loves it. Everybody loves it.
Mm-hmm. So we compare and contrast what we expected before watching the show with what we got when we actually did watch the show. It's fun. It's interesting. I like it a lot. So Michael, before you watched this first episode of Alien Worlds entitled Atlas, what did you expect?
I actually had seen a trailer for this show. It was one of these shows like, when you open up Netflix and it just starts playing the trailer right away. I mean, this is a year ago, I guess, because this show's a year old. But yeah, I was just like looking at Netflix, and then the trailer starts playing, and I was like, okay, this is interesting. Oh, let me check this out. So I had a good idea about what it was going to be about, and so that's what I expected, is that it was going to be what it was about.
Mm-hmm. That is a good expectation. Mohammed, what did you expect before watching this first episode?
So if I'd heard of this show, I completely did not remember it. So I had no idea what it was. I remember you texted me saying like, we're gonna watch Alien Worlds. I was like, okay. And I pulled up the description. The description said something like it's a mixture of science and science fiction. Like, and it said something about it being kind of documentary-like. So my guess at the time was that it was going to be basically like a fake documentary, like an analysis of some alien world that doesn't exist, but just analyzing it, which wasn't, as we'll see in a moment, isn't terribly far from at least half of what it was. But that was kind of, I really didn't know what to expect though coming in.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about this, and it seemed familiar. Like before watching, when I just kind of saw the show called Alien Worlds, and scientists theorize, what life would be like on other planets or something to that effect. And I too, Michael, felt as though I had seen this preview or something, but I thought it was more like 3, 4, 5 years ago. So I'm wondering if that was another show completely, because I was surprised when it said this was 2020. I was like, I feel like I saw this along, but of course, during the pandemic times, there's like, there's this time vortex, and I don't really know anything that's happening. So something that felt like 5 years ago may have seriously been 18 months. Anyway, point is, so I thought I knew what to expect, but I wasn't sure if it was the same show that I was thinking of. So I honestly expected to like it, because spoiler alert, everybody, this is the kind of that I watch every night anyway. I watch things like Atlas Pro and Real Life Lore, these history things and these science things and geography things and alien stuff. And, I'm like, oh my God, there's a show. He
doesn't watch the shows that he actually liked when we reviewed them. He watches all these documentary shows.
Yeah, it's, and I do. And so I thought, wow, this is a show that could be right up my alley. And why haven't I already watched this? Because it seems like exactly what I would want to see. But that's what we expected. Here's the catch. Michael, what did you actually get? I know.
Expectations. What I got was exactly what I expected, is what the trailer showed me. They took science on Earth, biological evolution, and they applied it to theoretical planets other outside of our solar system. So, and that's what I got. And that's exactly what I expected. And so that's what I got.
Mohammed, your thoughts? What did you actually get?
I was surprised to see, actually, a lot of it was not at all. Well, I mean, since I didn't really have an expectation, I don't know. I can say it wasn't what I expected. I had no expectation there. I was very surprised at the interviews with the scientists. I was very surprised at some of the ways that, we'll get into the nitty gritty of it. I was very surprised at some of the ways they approached also the alien world and things like that. Like, oh, that's not what I thought it was going to be, which, that piqued my interest, at least.
You're piquing mine right now too.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on the show. But
great.
We'll get the gritty of it.
Okay.
Well, once Ryan tells us what he got, we can actually get into those thoughts.
We're diving in right now. Me telling you guys what I actually thought is like us putting on the floaters, and once those are done, we're diving into the deep end, because we're feeling very brave.
We're feeling very sassy, as Ryan said.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I got. What I got was something very enjoyable that I do watch on my own anyway. Like, I want to learn science in an easy to understand way. Guess why? And I also like things, especially what I was hoping was something that actually theorizes about other alien worlds, because this is something that writers like myself, and I like to come up with science fiction things and planets and worlds, and that is possibly the most fun thing, more than characters, more than the story itself, is creating these worlds or creating these galaxies or creating these cultures or these aliens or the different kinds of, that's the really fun part. That's so fun. But we're only equipped with so much to be able to do that. And a show like this can actually help you a little bit more along the way, supposedly, unless the science is wrong. So I found it to be actually what I look for naturally, rather than spending 3 hours a night on Wikipedia. But that's what I actually got. Let's just get to it. Mohamed, and I thought of you often because I was like, wow, I wonder what Mohamed thinks about this, or I wonder, what a perfect fit. Are you going to come crashing down and shatter everything that we thought was cool? Or me personally?
No, I was very mixed on a lot of aspects. So on the positive, and overall net positive, I'd say. I wouldn't crash it all down and say like, oh, it's all. I mean, on the positive side, I mean, it's actually very similar to the kind of thing I try to do at sci-fi conventions, which is basically try to get people excited about real world science using science fiction. So that aspect was cool. They actually had a very concrete set of scientific topics that they were working through. They're ones that I've talked about several times too, about detecting other. Well, I haven't talked about detecting other planets, but that's more Dr. Aaron McDonald's area. But things about herbivores and producers and sexual selection and natural effects of natural disasters. I mean, they had a whole bunch. They clearly had an agenda as they were going through it. They talked to real scientists and had real science examples, and then they applied it back to what we saw there on the planet. So that part was all really cool. There were three things.
When you said, right now you are about
to avoid the word but.
You're going to destroy War Dog Heim's prediction of you. I can see it right now. I saw what his prediction is. He predicted very high for you, and Anne-Marie did too.
Yeah.
Okay, let him have it.
So the first one, actually, I'd be curious what you guys think, because you guys are a good test audience for this. I was trying to figure out, who is this aimed at? Right. So when I was watching it, or I was thinking about like the things I do. So when I do something like, for example, science in Star Trek or in Game of Thrones or whatever, I'm using an existing fan base and I'm trying to reach them with something they're really excited about. There's no existing fan base for Atlas, right? So it was just a creative approach, but nobody's already vested in that because they've seen Atlas for the 5 minutes before the little piece that they saw it. So that part was a little bit funny. I mean, my impression was that people who would like this, and this is, I think, consistent with what you said, Ryan, people who would like this are people who would just like a straight up nature show too. Now, this has an extra creative element to it too, but that's cool. But I didn't feel like it was bringing other people in who wouldn't have otherwise gone in. So that I thought was kind of a bit of a missed opportunity. But I'm biased because that's the kind of thing that I do. So that was number one. Number two, the main narrator. So the scientists were great. The main narrator said stuff. I was like, what on earth are you talking about? So I wrote like an example here. If life
not on
exists,
Earth, Mohamed.
What's that?
It's not on Earth.
It's not on Earth. If life exists only in a fraction of these worlds, then the universe must be alive. What?
Yeah.
What the heck does that mean? Like, there were a lot of sentences that you would say like that at times. Like, what? What is that? And when the scientists were talking, I felt like they were very precise and clear, and they had a point. Or she would say these like weird, sweeping sentences that I don't even know what that sentence means. Like, what does it mean the universe is alive? I mean, we know it's alive because we're alive. We're in the universe. So
I noticed the same.
Multiple times like that, things would get said. Like, I didn't get that. And the third, this is probably the most critical thing, is on the science itself. It was very much assuming life is very similar to life on Earth. I mean, there were solidly like animals and plants in all these different worlds. And that's, at least I think, very unlikely. I think the most likely kind of life we're going to see in some other world is something much more, something much more microbial. Because think about the evolutionary history of Earth, like the first several billion years of life, everything was microbial. And this was, these big things that had herbivores, like herbivores. So you're already having plants and animals. And they even talked about seeds or the way all life is spread. Like, what? That's just plants. So it felt very assumption laden in that life would be very similar to life on Earth. Now I'm going to walk back a little bit when I said, if you go a long time and if you have forms that come about, maybe aren't exactly animals, but that are large and mobile and multicellular, yeah, maybe a lot of these same processes would still kind of apply. So, but
I think they're talking about like such a grand scale, though. I mean, I think one of the scientists said, or maybe it was the narrator said, that you can assume that there's at least one planet for every star in the galaxy or in the universe.
Yeah.
And so basically how they quantify that for us humans is they said there's more planets out in the universe than there are grains of sand on Earth. And that's a ton. So, I mean, statistically speaking, I'm assuming
more than a ton.
That you would think that, there's at least 2 tons. That you would assume that at least, they're not talking about all planets. They're talking about, okay, maybe a handful of planets only in the entire universe that this happens on. This miracle where evolution occurs, and first of all, life occurs in the first place, and then life evolves over the universe is billions of years old already, so maybe hundreds of billions or something like that. But so over all that amount of time in all these different planets, and they're not even saying, I don't think, that this is occurring concurrently with life on Earth either. So
this
that's could have been like a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So.
That's absolutely right. So I brought this up with a friend of mine. I was talking to a biologist friend of mine on the phone earlier today, and I said that the only way it would work would be along the context of what you're saying, that somewhere it exists, but it's so likely somewhere it's going to be so rare that that there's a high probability we'd never find it. Like we'd never ever see it. And I always say we, I don't even mean just the 3 of us on the screen.
We as humankind.
Definitely not me,
Well, I wanted to throw in a couple things there. One that Mike touched upon with the sands in the hourglass are as many as the planetary bodies in the universe.
That was a great one.
That was kind of my way of checking the validity of the rest of the science, was when it would say things that I knew to be true or accepted in the scientific community, because I had heard this statistic before about grains of sand on the planet when I was much younger. I think I was a kid. And when I heard that, I was just like, no, I misheard that. That is not that's like in a sandbox or on a beach. What are we talking about? The entirety of grains of sand on the entire planet is less than how many stars are out there in the universe, and in this case, planets. And that's when you really finally can grasp what scientists are talking about when they say there are a lot of stars out there. It's like an unfathomable number. So that, and also how they detect planets. I remember reading about that many years back, about like the dimming of the star, because we can't actually see it, but clearly there's something passing ahead of it when it dims. So those were kind of things that I'd known that allowed me to say, okay, it seems like the science is correct on the things that I don't know. But it just goes to show you, though, that Americans will use anything to not use the metric system. Right. And Mohamed, to your point about, about that most planets, the overwhelming majority of planets that do have some life, would be life so basically boring in many ways to most of us. But I think that this is a show about storytelling, and let's say 999,999 planets out of 1 million that have life are microbial, but one has some more interesting things. They're going to choose that one. They're going to say, well, we're going to talk about this one more so than just talking about the average planet with life. So I think for storytelling and for the viewers, they've got to focus on the ones that are the more extreme cases, or the more interesting cases, I think was the key there.
Yeah, there are some concepts you could do with those microbial ones. Like you could talk about, for example, they didn't really talk about natural selection, and that's something you could talk about. It doesn't matter if they're microbial or big. You don't need the herbivore, or all those kinds of things, and predators stuff. But you're right. Yeah, people would not want to watch 4 episodes of a show.
I still would, but
but probably not so much.
But less eagerly.
Yeah. This is a lesson to you, Hollywood. If you want Ryan to watch a show, don't try to make it interesting. Try to make it a boring documentary.
Oh,
yeah.
There's a reason they call it charismatic megafauna, right? Because that's what people like. They like these big charismatic. It's things like elephants. It's things like walruses. People like that, as opposed to, that's like E. coli.
That blob did seem a little. Anyway, so
it was cute. Yeah.
The first thing that I thought of when I was watching this, the first thing I wanted to ask you about, Mohamed, was when they mentioned the more dense atmosphere,
right?
And that
Me
these
too.
animals,
I automatically thought of Mohammed. Like,
yeah,
is that true? Like, if there's higher gravity, is the air molecules packed tightly together? And
yeah, it's almost like they're floating on the ocean rather than what we conceive to be air.
I mean, just to give a couple of examples just from our solar system, think like Mars versus Earth versus like Saturn. I mean, Mars has almost no atmosphere, though part of that is the magnetic core in the middle doesn't, basically it doesn't have the magnetic field to hold an atmosphere, but it's also very low gravity. We're a much bigger planet. We have, we do have the magnetic field to hold the atmosphere. Then you have something like Saturn, which is a gas giant. So I mean, on average, I mean, obviously there's gonna be exceptions here and there.
Yeah, because I had, oftentimes pictured, heavier gravity and lower gravity, and our minds kind of wander as to what might evolve out of those. But I never considered the notion of the higher gravity creating a thicker atmosphere, making it easier to float above it, or to fly above it, or to swim above it, or glide above it. Like, I hadn't thought of that. I mean, it makes sense, but you're saying that works?
As far as I know, yeah. I mean, that's more, again, Dr. Aaron McDonald's area than mine, but yeah, as far as I could tell, that seemed completely reasonable.
Well, that was cool. That was the first kind of thing that I hadn't ever considered.
Yeah, that blew my mind for sure.
Sounds fun, right?
I know. I want to go swimming in the air.
What do you think of the sexual selection part? That was something, actually. There was something that was interesting. They conflated, I thought, two concepts together, but not necessarily in a bad way, but it was interesting.
Yeah, I had a question about that for you too, because that was the one at first when it said they have the longer tails, which makes it harder for them to fly, making them more desirable to the women.
Yeah,
the female.
That's an old idea. It's called the handicap principle. This is the idea that if you're actually handicapped but you're still surviving, that maybe that's more attractive. That's a funny way of putting it. So that's again one of those places where I felt that two things got conflated, right? So there's really kind of two forms of sexual selection. They can apply separately, or they can kind of be a mishmash. One is male competition, right? So for example, like you have the beetles with the big things, and they push the other beetle out of the way, like one of the examples you saw. Yeah, that's clearly something sexually selected, and it's specifically for males to compete.
Right. That part made me sad because I'm not very competitive as a male, but luckily I've already locked down my spouse. So.
With you.
Yeah, but see, so my problem with that was that I thought, well, in evolution, sure, sexual selection, right? Fine. Well, but in evolution, something that has a hindrance is going to die out, evolutionarily speaking. And that's why I was immediately like, wait, that doesn't make sense to me. Now, and Mohammed, I know you got a million things to say, but I'll just finish with this. Then when they explained the beetle thing, and I was like, oh, I guess that changes a little bit of it. It explains it a little bit, but that horn that they used as their example did serve a purpose as to defeating its challenger. So that still served a purpose. Whereas with the tail, they just said it's just a negative. So
what about the
second one? The second kind of sexual selection goes to what you were talking about, and that's just straight up female choice. So there, let's say, for example, if females are just attracted to a longer tail, not for any particular reason, they just happen to be attracted to a longer tail, then males with the longer tails will have more offspring, even if on average they can't fly as well. So that's where you get the compensation thing. So that's why I felt like they kind of just shoved those two things together like it was one concept. Like, well, I mean, really, if you separate them, it's a lot easier to understand for exactly the reason you just said. There's some things that are selected for male competition. There's a clear usefulness. I need to defeat this other male so I can get access to the female. Or the other one where it's just females just love this. So yeah, maybe I'm going to die at the age of 30, but I'm going to have a lot of fun before that.
Yeah.
Well, my guess though is that the males with the longer tails, they've probably just had a better sense of humor. So
that could be
right. But then but then as to play devil advocate against my own head, I was also trying to wrap my brain around this thing that didn't seem like it fit exactly with what I understand science to be, which is very limited, obviously. But then I thought, okay, well, there are spiders that have these big shiny things that to try to attract other spiders, but clearly that's probably a hindrance. Peacocks, they have these gigantic tails. isn't that seems like it might be a hindrance. I don't know if it is. So then I was like, okay, well, maybe, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, females on average should prefer the more elaborate ones. Now, the models get increasingly complex after that. And there's a model called the sexy sun model, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
If you have I know it's cool. If you have like variants in male traits, so imagine some like a bird with a short tail and a bird with a long tail. And let's say that just some females in the population have a preference for longer tail. Not necessarily all of them do, right? So the males with longer tails on average will have more offspring, right? Because they can mate not just with the ones with no preference, but also especially the ones with the preference, they'll have a higher mating rate, right? Because of that creates a genetic correlation between the preference and the longer tail, which then as the tail starts spreading, the preference actually becomes more common too. Which is a weird evolutionary dynamic.
But it totally makes sense.
Right?
It works.
Because those individuals that have the long tail genes tend to also have the female preference gene. So now the preference keeps getting more abundant as the tail gets longer too. So it creates this runaway process.
And then some of us with a shorter tail just need to be funnier. So.
Yeah, but then the females will just be like, it's perfect. So
size doesn't matter.
I think I missed something, or maybe they just glossed over and I didn't feel like rewinding.
Glossed over a lot, yeah.
Was these big green sacks behind myself and Michael. I was calling them parasites, predators. But I think they call them predators. I would have preferred if they gave them actual names, like the glam doors or whatever. Yeah. So they explained that in order to float and become these balloons, they filled up with hydrogen, I believe, right? Yeah. But did they explain how they fill up with hydrogen? Because that bacteria. I did not.
They said a hydrogen producing bacteria.
Yeah. It was just a very quick comment. Actually, that's interesting. Yeah. That was also in, I don't remember if you remember the third season of Discovery, there were these little floaty things that did the same thing with hydrogen as well. Oh, or at least, okay. I think at least, I don't know if they said hydrogen. Maybe I just hypothesized that in one of our biotricks.
But in your mind, it was hydrogen.
In my mind, it was like, but I kept on joking. It'd be really funny that if somebody took some fire there, like they'd explode.
Yeah, they all blew up. Yeah.
Man, there'll be some guys doing some crazy target practice with those things.
Yeah.
So how
but it'd be some sort of chemical reaction.
How could so they have a bunch of bacteria in their belly that can somehow just create a ton of hydrogen in an instant in order for them to fill up and float?
So Michael, I didn't catch, did they specifically say it was bacteria? I missed that if they said that.
They said a hydrogen producing bacteria. They inflate using a hydrogen. They said, I believe it was hydrogen. They said hydrogen producing bacteria.
Okay, I didn't catch that. I mean, I believe you, but I didn't catch that. The way I would imagine it happening, I wouldn't use the bacteria thing. I'd imagine something where they have like stores in two parts of their body. So something like, have you heard of the bombardier beetle? This is something really cool to Google. Yeah. So that's something which shoots these like boiling acids, but they're not sitting inside its body boiling. They essentially in the body when they're going to shoot it, they mix these two things and then shoot out. You can imagine something like that, where like I'm going to mix these two things, and oh look, one of the products of this is it releases a bunch of hydrogen.
Yeah.
Stuff. So I'd imagine something like that would work fairly quickly to rapidly do it, and they have full control over it. That was
or maybe there's just the bacteria in there does that.
Maybe that's.
Well, you would think though that the bacteria would take a long time to produce enough hydrogen to float them up like that.
Yeah, so that's why I think just a straight up chemical reaction might be better than employing the bacteria piece there. But
right, you listening to Netflix?
This is so fun, you guys. Oh my God. When I was watching this, I was like, oh my God, I'm scared that we're just gonna nerd out and people are gonna be so bored because it's just gonna be three guys asking, or two guys asking a scientist, what about this? Does that work? And him going, well, I'll tell you, young man. Okay. Well, so that was kind of 50-50 on a couple of those things. I'll tell you what I did.
Pretty good.
I'll tell you what I didn't like about the show.
Please.
And by didn't like, I just mean like knocked it down
less.
A peg for me. Yeah.
Liked it less.
Yeah. Spoiler. Yeah. About midway through it or 2/3 through it, I realized that for my taste, they were spending too much time on visiting John Smith out in Nebraska or visiting Sally Struthers out in, Burundi. And I realized I was like, we're not getting much about alien worlds. We're getting more about science from our own world. And that's not what I tuned in for. Like, I love the science aspect, but I wanted the science to feed into the alien worlds, not for the alien worlds to just set up a little bit of alien worlds to set up the bigger picture, which is all the science on the planet. So I would have preferred if those 5 to 7 minute segments in, Tallahassee or whatever, to be condensed to 1 minute with the narrator saying, now, just like in Tallahassee, John Smith does this and does that and does this and whatever. And that's why, boom. And then we don't need this huge long thing. And then we can go back to the alien world, learn more about the alien world, learn more about the animals and the bacteria and the vegetation and all that. Because otherwise we only got 3. We got the scavengers, we got the predators, and we got the grazers. And I wanted more.
The scavengers.
Yeah. I wanted more of the planet and the aliens and the theory, and less of an explanation as to the science. Just tell us the science, explain it to us real quick. We get it, and then move on to the fun stuff.
I guess that brings us to our next question. Who was your favorite character?
Yeah. Mohamed?
Oh, man. I don't remember any of the scientists' names, so I can't pick any of them.
Oh, you could pick one of the monsters too, or sorry,
it's definitely the scavengers.
Aliens.
The scavengers were cool. The rolling over in I like them a lot.
But see, I was trying to understand the science behind them, because they envelop something, right? And then they dissolve it. But I didn't see like that it had any openings or pockets. And then so maybe it just comes out of their pores, and then they absorb the nutrients through their pores too, or what? How does that even work?
See, this would have been perfect for the microbial show, because this happens all the time. That's what microbes do, right? They just envelop other things and dissolve them, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I wish they. Okay, so my favorite, I guess, just barely, it was the grazers, or in Star Trek lore, the grazerites. Those are the cow-looking aliens. One was the president of the Federation. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, but he was a grazerite. Everybody, what was his name? Jarish Inyo or something? Anyway.
What are you talking about? I don't remember the name.
Yeah. So I did have one problem with the grazerites, and that was when the female grazerite, or grazer, sky grazer, landed, and it says, oh, she has to drop her babies now, but she's not strong enough to lift herself off the ground. My immediate thought was, why doesn't she just park on a cliff, drop off a cliff and go? And then 2 minutes later, it showed the babies doing exactly that. So I'm like, you guys are aware. I mean, it's not that you guys didn't think about it, because you did think about it and use it for the babies that are invalids practically, but the mama can't just drag her like a sea turtle, dragging itself from the sand back into the ocean. Why couldn't she do that? So that bothered me, and then they showed exactly why it bothered me. But Michael,
the babies are smaller though, so maybe it's easier for them to drag themselves on their little wing feet.
Then she can drop them a foot away from the cliff. I don't know. It just that just bothered me. That was just
It just felt like there'd be strong natural selection for those females who target the cliffs, right? Because they would have multiple bouts of reproduction instead of just one.
Right. Mm-hmm. Michael, did you have a favorite? Oh, you like the green sacks, right?
No, I'm a scavenger guy.
Really?
The scavengers.
Team scavenger.
Yeah, because for not any reason that makes any sense, but because they reminded me of like a Dungeons and Dragons monster. I was trying to look it up. I couldn't find it.
It's like a rolling beholder, yeah.
Right. No, I thought it was more like a living wall, or I think there was one called Twisted Horror or something like that. But yeah, it reminded me of a Dungeons and Dragons monster.
Could be a rolling beholder. I mean, you kind of see that.
Yeah, no, I was actually thinking of the green sacks as the beholder kind of thing. But yeah, there was like
or like Tangela for Pokemon.
Well, yeah, there's tons of eyes.
There was like a wall thing or a right, yeah,
living wall.
But Mohammed, it seemed like you were racking your brain to figure out who your favorite scientist was. Did you have one?
the one I remember the most is the very first one, the guy who actually discovered the first exoplanet. I just thought that was really cool, and he seemed super excited about what he was doing. I mean, I guess what was his name?
Didier Queloz.
Ah, him.
Out in Chile. Yes, so apparently he was the first guy to discover the planet, and he was, once that happened, and I remember reading about it when it happened, it created a whole new, arm of science, of astro, physics or planetary observation, because suddenly everybody kind of figured out what his methodology was for figuring out there's a planet, and then they started going, we can find more planets this way, right? I mean, it seems like that's what happened. That's kind of what happens in science is once one person figures out a way to discover something, everybody uses that method, right?
Yeah. And it's very limited too, because all you can pick up are planets very close to their star and large planets. So, I mean, there's probably a lot more than that. Because you imagine, if you use that, I mean, what they're seeing is that dip in brightness, but let's say you were watching Earth, you're gonna see that dip once a year. I mean, you're not gonna remember that. Whereas it's those ones they see that happen every 90 hours. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, there must be something orbiting that, but it's really close to the star.
So it's not like they can just look at a star and wait for a planet to go through. They kind of just have to look at all the stars, and then when one of them dips, they go, okay, there's one.
We found one. Dip 3 times in the same period, right? It has to dip multiple times in the same period. So if they're watching,
so it's verifiable.
Uranus or Neptune, it's gonna take forever. They have to watch it for years and years and years.
So I think they said they found over 40 by now using that method. So that's awesome.
How many?
40, I think is what they said.
It was a lot more than that.
Or was it 4,000? I think it was 4,000.
It was 4,000. Yeah, that sounds good.
That's a better number.
Yeah, add a couple zeros there, Ryan.
Yeah, like us. A million, billion, trillion. Oh yeah, it was 4,000. Yeah, you're right. Michael, did you have a favorite?
Good job, scientists. Yeah, the first guy. I mean, I'm probably not any slander to Mohammed, but probably my favorite branch of science is astrophysics. So
it's cool.
Yeah.
What about you, Ryan?
I didn't.
Probably the French guy, Didier. Right?
Well, he was in Chile, so he might just had a French name in Chile, or he could have been a French guy that moved to Chile or something. I don't know. He was cool. Although I could have done without the light sticks forever. I'm like, okay, we get it. You can,
yeah, the light sticks are a little fun.
Because then I just thought about, I'm like, you spent so much time in that day. Like I was just thinking about it like as a producer, where I'm like, dude, you guys, you could have just said 1, 2, and so on, and we get it. Because if you'll notice, by the time they were done putting all those light sticks, it had gone from day to night. Like they spent 6 hours. I was just like, well, you guys don't need to spend that much time on this. Just tell us.
But that was also more dramatic too, because then you could see all the lights shining because it was nighttime.
And maybe they're like, hey, we got a Netflix budget. We're good. Were there any...
what do they have? They have like a producer, a cameraman, and then the dude. So what does that cost them? Nothing.
Sound guy, yeah. Did you guys like those stock-eyed flies?
Oh yeah, I've seen those before. They're really, I mean, not like live, but I've seen them in papers and stuff before. Those are cool.
I'd never seen those before. And the way they check out their dominance, they look through their eyes. They're like, oh, looks like yours are. All right, you win. And that's it. Easy.
There's a great guy at the University of Maryland who works on those. His name's Jerry Wilkinson. So shout out to Jerry Wilkinson.
All right, yeah. Non-apparent mention.
It's probably his first name. I watched the first.
So far.
So far.
I also enjoyed watching the little meerkats and the scorpion. That was cute.
Yeah,
for the meerkat.
I was scared for that little meerkat. I was like, no, don't. And then the scorpion stung him too. Yeah, right, and I was like, oh, poor guy. But then he was like, that's it. You're gonna get it, scorpion.
Eat it.
Teach him a lesson he'll never forget. Speaking of a lesson we'll never forget, what are we thinking? It is now time to talk about you, Mr. Mohamed Noor. Sorry, Dr. Mohamed Noor. So,
Mr. Dr. Mohamed Noor,
you've got some pretty big news for everybody that kind of follows you. They know that you do some podcasting of your own. You're also an occasional science advisor for Star Trek, which is pretty awesome, and we hate you for it. We're very jealous.
We hate love you for it.
Yeah. Is there anything new coming up on that front, by the way?
Actually, yes. So back in January, I launched a mini series with actress Jane Brooke, who's a phenomenal person. She played Admiral Katrina Cornwell in Star Trek Discovery. And what we did is we walked through episodes of season 3 of Star Trek Discovery, usually 2 at a time, and talked about both the science and the production aspects to it. Where I'd bring the science expertise, she'd bring the production expertise. It was a lot of fun. Well, season 4 of Discovery is around the corner.
Oh boy.
And we just got the green light that it's okay with CBS and Paramount that we actually bring back BioTrekkie with the Admiral to talk about season 4 of Discovery, some of the science.
Oh yeah!
So I'm excited to do that. It won't, per my NDA, I have to wait till after the season is over before we air any episodes. And we haven't decided yet on exactly the format. Are we going to do exactly like last time, or maybe just do 1 or 2 or a couple of episodes? So we'll have to wait and see as the episodes come out. But I'm excited to do that project again. And then meanwhile, my regular BioTrekkie Explains podcast series is moving on. I have an episode for November that's already queued up, and I've started working on my December one for that. And those are from just random series. I think the one for November is from the animated series, which is the first time I've ever done anything from that. And then for December, it's another Voyager discussion one on discussing the science of phylogenetics, or the study of evolutionary relationships, based on the episode Distant Origin.
You got to give animated series more love. I'm looking forward to that. Boy, that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, that one's in there. Yep.
Did everybody catch that at home that's listening in, that Mohamed just kind of threw it out like nonchalantly? So, I talked to CBS and Paramount, and they said it was cool. They said it was cool with them. No big deal. I just talked to them real quick.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. I mean, you have to wait till the season's over. But yeah, go ahead though. Yeah.
He grabs the red phone. He's like, "Give me CBS and Paramount." They're like, "Hello, this is the CEO of Paramount. What would you like, Dr. Mohamed?" "I want to do my show." And then said, "Okay, absolutely. Yes."
Well, it's tricky because, since I'm associated with the show, like I can't, for most people, you just do it, right? But since I'm associated with it, they have to just confirm, like, you swear you're not going to give away any secrets. Like, yeah, no, of course I would never do that. So
right.
There were a couple of other questions they had me go through and things to confirm, but.
And jeopardize my relationship with Star Trek?
That was exactly my point. Like, there's no way in heck I would jeopardize that. I love doing that.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think anybody would jeopardize their relationship with Star Trek for a podcast.
That a handful of people watch.
Some people would jeopardize their relationship with CBS and Paramount for a podcast, but that's because they don't have a relationship with CBS and Paramount already. Because there's some people out there doing similar, things to that, but they'll never have. They don't have a chance. Anyway,
it's already burned.
That's really cool. So that means we can look forward to BioTrekkie and the Admiral sometime in the first quarter of 2022. Yes,
that's the plan.
That is so cool.
Thank you.
I know Michael and I we just taste a super lemon. We're like, yum. Oh, okay.
It came up in the discussion of Squid Game. I can't remember how that came up.
Because that's why I mentioned it was in reference to that, was because I think I was saying that the show felt like something that middle school boys really get into. And I said like Super Lemons and Pogs.
That's what it was. Yeah, I was trying to remember how that connected to Squid Game.
Everybody tried.
I was never too into
Pogs.
Cool. I did have one Pog. It was like a dragon on it. That's the only reason I had it. So.
Yeah, I couldn't get it. Luckily, that's one of those things that only lasted 3 months. Okay, back to business. Mike, get your karate chop in hand ready. It is time for the Terrible Twos.
Bottom line.
That was a psych out.
Bottom line. Or as Eve England called it, the verdict.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Good name. It's a good name too.
Yeah, but how does she really pronounce it, Michael?
The verdict. I don't know.
Okay. Shout out to Eve England, because I think we do like in every episode all of a sudden.
She's great.
Here we go. Oh, by the way, who suggested this episode or this show for us, Michael? Do you remember who that was? This is for you.
I think it was Ryan T. Husk.
No, it was It was Leopold 78, I think it was something like that. Leopold.
Okay.
I checked my notes, but I think that's what it was. Leopold 78. Leopold.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so thank you to Leopold and 78 for this suggestion. If you'd like us to review a show, say WTF and your suggestion in the comment section below. Final two questions of the show are really the most important ones. Michael Kenyon Rosenberg, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give the first episode of Alien Worlds entitled Atlas?
Well, I watched it. It was fine. And it wasn't, I'm not Orion where I'm like watching some
Orion
galaxy. Yeah, I was gonna say that's a different galaxy.
dorky
constellation.
Yeah, it's a parallel universe. I'm not some Ryan where I like to watch these dorky documentaries and just nerd out to them. It's science is fun. It's fine, and this is a fine show. They did a fine job. It was okay, and so I'm just gonna go right down the middle of the road and give it a straight up 5.
Ryan's horrified.
I thought you said a 5 for a second there. What was it really?
That's what I said. 5.
Okay.
5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
War Dogheim, you were way off. Mohammed, what do you? But some of you guessed middle of the road. Anyway, Mohammed, what would you give it on a scale of 1 to 10?
So this is tough because is it for me personally or is it for general viewers? So I'm gonna do it for me personally.
Yeah.
I liked it okay. I mean, by the end, I found it thought-provoking. Sometimes in a frustrating way, but still thought-provoking nonetheless. And so in that sense, I thought it was kind of cool. I'd probably just be like 6 or 6.5. I'll say 6.5. I'll go generous on it. I mean, in terms of presenting some scientific concepts in an approachable way, I thought it was successful with that. I still came away thinking this kind of relates to the comment you made, Ryan, earlier. I came away thinking I don't feel like they've targeted an audience here, because there's going to be people who want just a straight up documentary, and at which point, why are you even doing the alien part? There's going to be people who want serious alien parts, and you're not doing enough of that there, or leveraging things people care about them. There's a funny middle ground, and that's where I kind of felt like it was in a bit of a gap there. So that's part of what didn't excite me about it. But
mind the gap.
Mind the gap.
That's a British thing right there, London's.
But overall, pretty good.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you guys what I think it should be rated, or at least what I gave it. So at first, I was ready to give this thing a 10 because I love the concept. Wow. Because I love the concept. The concept is exactly what I'm looking for out of life. I want something that's going to...
There's your target audience right there.
Yeah, that's going to theorize what life might be like on other worlds. For those of us that want to write and create worlds, it helps to give us a little bit of somewhat of an education or field research, theoretical field research, right? And also it's in documentary form, which is interesting. There's not too many big bangs, or I don't like the quick cuts and trying to make it exciting. Just let it marinate, let us enjoy it and relax. But then midway through it, I realized it's not a 10 because the execution wasn't what I was hoping it would be. And it gave us too much of the hanging out in Idaho and telling us, what Billy's doing over there, which is cool.
Come to Durham and hang out with me.
Yeah, right. Which is cool and it's great and it's awesome and I love that stuff. But we can get that anywhere. What I want was the theoretical stuff and more theoretical stuff about the alien worlds. That's why I'm tuning in. So I don't need as much of that other stuff. I watched that in other places. So I dropped it down to a 9, and then they kept doing it, and I dropped it down to an 8.5, and that's where I'm going to sit. 8.5, because it's still what I'm looking for, even if they didn't do it as well as I would have liked. Michael, here we go. For the purposes of this podcast, we all had to watch the first episode of Alien Worlds. But now that the podcast is over and we're free to move about the internet, would you watch the second episode of Alien Worlds of your own volition?
Sure.
Really?
I would say, yeah, sure.
Don't try to talk him out of it, Mohammed.
I was thinking the way you said it before, well, like it was okay. I thought that
it was fine. It was fine. Yeah. If I needed to watch something to fall asleep, I'd probably put this on and yeah, but it was fine. I would I'll watch it, sure.
So everybody scoring at home, Michael has 51 yeses, 33 no's, and a sure. That's not the exact numbers. I just want to make that joke. Mohammed, I can't count that fast. What about you? Would you watch the second episode of Your Own Volition?
Probably not. Probably not. I mean, like I said, I liked it okay, but I wasn't even tempted to click play this next one. I was like, I'm okay. I'm going to watch just random entertainment stuff.
Weren't even tempted.
But no, to be clear, I do still recommend it because I still think it's worth watching. Just for me, it's like, or there's a bunch of basic biology concepts. Like, okay.
I'm kind of interested to see if they ever tackle like sentient life on other planets.
Oh yeah,
that's another step forward there. I mean, they could only get through 3 animals in this first one. I don't think they'll get to. Well, I'll tell you guys what. Yeah, I would watch the second. Not because it's anything that left a cliffhanger and makes you feel like you got to watch the second, but just because I was like, hey, this is the kind of stuff I watch anyway, or I put on while I'm working, something interesting, something educational that talks about geography or science or history or something like that. And it lets your mind wander into fun and faraway places. And sometimes you go, oh shit, I wandered for 20 minutes. I need to rewind and hear, I forgot to listen. But anyway, yeah, I would. So that's cool. I was actually very happy with that. I left watching that episode thinking, why don't we just review shows that I would already watch? This would be like, what a deal, right? This is like, hey, like, then I wouldn't think, oh, I gotta watch so-and-so. I'd be like, oh, I get to watch.
Yeah.
So everybody at home.
That's what I keep trying to say.
Recommend your favorite science or nature documentaries or theoretical shows like that. But please, Michael will make very angry faces unless you don't tell us where to stream it. Netflix, Hulu, probably not Disney Plus, but something like that. Anyway, so
have you seen the Cane Toad movie?
The which?
The Cane Toad movie. This is from like 1989 or something like that.
Saw March of the Penguins. That's cool.
No. You have to, if you like this kinds of like documentary, this is like the documentary on acid.
Yes.
It's crazy, but it's hilarious too. But it has a lot of good science, but it's also like really, really funny and engaging as you get further into it. It starts very standard, but then it kind of goes out there.
1989. Wow.
I like TED Talks.
I think it's on YouTube. I think you can just find it on there, but it's called the Cane Toad movie.
Did you hear that, everybody? Mohammed made a suggestion and told us where to find it. Mm-hmm. All right, TED Talks. Michael, we got everything covered, right? It's time to close out.
Oh, we're ready to close.
All right. Well, then I will say that this and please, everybody, leave those comments below. Give us a like. Don't forget to give us a like. Please be sure to subscribe. It's virtual gold. It's virtual platinum. This podcast was a blend of science and fiction, but it was not science fiction.
This podcast was very educational for me.
This podcast was a veritable love fest for science.
Yes.
Yeah.
So everybody
loves science.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Leopold78. Sorry we didn't mention that at the top. Always remember what and be good to each other. And if you see flying green sacks, be careful. Those things are nasty.
Especially if they're flying in a big group.
Mm-hmm. Michael Kenyon Rosenberg, tell us what you always like to say.
I love to say don't forget to be registered to be an organ donor at Donate Life America. We have to make sure that everybody gets registered. it's not like we live in Wales, as Eva England told me, where everyone's automatically registered and you have to opt out. And then if you opt out, then you're at the end of the line if you need an organ. So
you know who does live in Wales? Bacteria.
Eva England. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. Well, yeah. But also I love to say don't forget to watch the first of Things.